Is the November 13th Danvers School Committee meeting, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Danvers Public Schools is a dynamic community of independent learners dedicated to respect, responsibility, creativity, and the pursuit of academic and personal excellence. The meeting is being broadcast on Danvers Community Access Television. Is there anyone in the audience who is recording this proceedings? Okay. So we will first start with any first items of interest from the superintendent or school committee.
No,
Okay, all right. Is there any comments from the public? Okay, all right.
We're ready?
So we will start then, I guess. You want to start with the Thorpe presentation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'd be honored to. Tonight we have Principal Riley here to present Thorpe Pride.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for the opportunity to come talk to you a little bit about the start of the year at Thorpe. Want to really start by just thanking everybody for the warm welcome from the community, faculty, staff, and students, as well as the admin team as I started my tenure at Thorpe. If you could go to the next slide, Superintendent Bauer.
Of course.
So Tiger 5 was started last year by Mrs. Ward and Mr. Amaral, and this year we're continuing to embed our core values throughout the school through monthly assemblies and ongoing, if you go back to one slide, sorry.
It's okay.
At our first assembly this month, we had a video, so if you, does it play, Dr. Superintendent Bauer? It's all right.
It
seems like the video doesn't want to work.
On that screen while I do it. It's a delay.
Operator error.
No, I think
It's all right. We had a first assembly where we created a video with the help of one of our second grade teachers, Mrs. Dresner, around our core values to kind of kick off this year. And every year, every morning, we start with our morning pledge. It's at Thorpe School, we are Tigers, and as Tigers, each of us show teamwork, integrity, growth mindset, empathy, and responsibility. The faculty, staff, and I are excited to embed these throughout our curriculum every day and are starting to introduce our Friday 5, where we have weekly recommendations from the staff around 5 students that have showed the core values throughout the week and why, and we recognize them on Fridays during our morning announcements. Our monthly Tiger Pride assemblies are opportunities for each grade level to take a turn to present on one of the core values, as well as providing time to for community celebrations and other enrichment opportunities. Something really exciting this year is our new music teacher, Ms. Goncalves, Superintendent Bauer, if you could go to the next slide, has actually created a Tiger song that each of the grade levels is learning and will be performed first by our second graders at an upcoming school-wide assembly. This song incorporates our core values and the students help to brainstorm lyric ideas around what Tiger 5 meant to them. So we're excited to hear the first school-wide performance of that at an upcoming assembly. In addition to our Tiger 5, if you go to the next slide, we've had a lot of great success this year. I know Principal Obremski discussed the MTSS block at his presentation last month, but at Thorpe, this collaborative process of providing intervention and extension opportunities to all students at each grade level has really been valuable time and provided individualized learning to each student. We recently transitioned to our second pilot knowledge building curriculum, and most grade levels will be piloting Amplify CKLA or Fish Tank over the next month. I've had the opportunity and pleasure to meet with approximately 50 Thorpe community members and stakeholders as part of my entry plan. And it's great to hear about all the amazing things at Thorpe and to have heard about some of the areas of potential growth and change from the community. Based on some of those initial meetings and collaborative discussions, we've implemented a few changes at Thorpe this year. The one being around the arrival process, where we transition from being all outside to inside in our cafeteria. This has been a really nice change. It actually helped with the traffic flow out front a little bit. And one of the nice things is that everybody goes into the cafeteria, so it's kind of helped reduce some of the stigma around some of the students that needed to go in for free and reduced breakfast, because everybody's able to go into the caf and access that free breakfast. One of the other changes this year has been with our Tiger Treats. It's now a bi-weekly, every other week program that's tied to a community event, and something that all students, regardless of cost, are able to access. We also transitioned to just offering from a sweet treat to fruit or an allergy-friendly option that parents can select every month. And tied to the treat selection that month, each grade level gets to vote on what they would like for the month. So this month, 5th grade voted. Next month, 4th grade will have the opportunity to select a treat that is off of our A-list approved options. And finally, our Halloween parade was a great success this year. It was amazing to see all the kids dressed up and our annual parade out front. We did transition it from the afternoon to the morning, and I'd say we had a very large outpouring from the community to watch the kids walk around in their costumes. If you could transition to the last slide, Superintendent Bauer. Finally, I really want to say thank you to our PAC for all that they do to support us. They provide an outstanding amount of support, not only around fundraising, but cultural enrichments that they provide to Thorpe on a monthly basis for all of our students to access. So happy to answer any questions that you might have about Thorpe.
Thank you. Any questions from the committee?
Just glad to hear about your entry process and your own and the changes to the arrival process. And hopefully you're getting to learn your staff and teachers and population and a lot of the parents and the other stakeholders who are part of the Thorpe family. So good luck. I'm glad it's off to a good start.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
I know we had issues with the video. Could you link it in your superintendent update?
I will be happy to, and I
Okay.
apologize for
It's all right.
technological errors.
I don't
I
think it's
assume
just you.
full
I can't
responsibility
either.
on that.
Yeah, so.
But I can
Thank
attest,
you.
if I could, Madam Chair, the great work that Brian is doing in his first year as principal and really bringing his staff together, his PAC. He's worked tirelessly. He's done a great job with special education. I know he works closely, working on the ILC program that we have there, and he's doing a great job in his first year bringing the school culture together.
I appreciate it. It's a true team effort, and thank everybody, and especially Superintendent Bauer and Lynn and Eric for all their support. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.
So Superintendent Bauer is now going to talk about the chronic absenteeism. I know we touched upon this at the last meeting, but he's going to go a little bit deeper into what that means and how DESE is supporting it.
Absolutely, thank you. At this time, I'd like to call Gail Avery up to the podium. She is our student support and attendance coordinator. She has a big job for our district, and through discussions, the superintendents have had meetings with Commissioner Riley to discuss the chronic absenteeism issue that has plagued not only our state but across the country. And the numbers are astounding in terms of the absenteeism, not just in Danvers, but throughout most of the Commonwealth, and not just at a high school, middle school, but at elementary. And we know logic tells us that the more that students are in school, that they're in learning, that the better their outcome will be. So this is a problem that the state is attacking. We did apply for a grant that we're keeping our fingers crossed that will allow us to improve a couple things. Number one, provide better dashboard information in terms of absenteeism. Number two, to be able to provide support for staff. And three, possibly run some academies that could meet during breaks and such that would provide enrichment and learning opportunities to make up for lost time. So I have to say thank you to Gail, because she did a great job putting the presentation together, and I'm going to turn it over to Gail.
Okay, I'm going to turn it back to you in a couple of slides.
You got it.
So the biggest piece is sort of most people think they understand what chronic absenteeism, and when you think of chronic absenteeism, you're really thinking about truancy. The folks here in front of me may understand the difference, but just in case, truancy is really about the unexcused absences. That's kids skipping school like we used to think about. It really emphasizes the compliance with school rules. It relies upon sort of the punitive measures of the court system and other administrative solutions within the school buildings to manage absenteeism. Chronic absent is very different. It counts all absences, excused, unexcused, and suspensions. So it doesn't matter whether a student is out with COVID or whether they're on vacation in Florida. What we know about that is it's missed academic time. It's missed learning time that cannot be replaced. And what that really focuses on is using community-based and positive strategies. And that's really the crux of what I was brought on board last June to be able to help the district with. So chronic absenteeism is defined by a national leader in this work. Attendance works as missing 10% or more of school days due to absence for any reason, excused, unexcused, and suspensions. So if we have a 180-day school year, 18 absences is 10%. Do you want me to talk about this part, or you want to talk about it?
Well, I don't mind. I can jump in a little
Okay.
bit, but this slide is actually from Commissioner Riley when he shared with the superintendents, just to show across the board just the spike from 2019, which is obviously before COVID, then post-COVID 2021, which is 29.9% threshold, which is just a crazy jump. Things have gotten better, but there's still work to be done. So if you correlate this, and this is, again, across the state, in terms of looking at performance data pre- and post-pandemic levels, you can see a correlation with where students are in terms of meeting or exceeding expectations, and you can see easily what is happening with the absenteeism at the elementary, middle, and high school. So it's not just the high school or middle school problem. This is across the board. And then when you break it down into MCAS, ELA, and math, you can certainly see the scaled scores. Again, this is across the board statewide, where you can see the numbers in 2023 in terms of the chronic absent versus the non-chronically absent and chronically absent. You can see the difference and you can see the performance. It's clear that students that are in school will perform better. That's just logic, but the data supports that.
Absolutely. So this slide talks a little bit about, how does Danvers compare to the state? So the red line on the top is the state averages, the blue line on the bottom is us, and that is our chronic absenteeism rate as reported to the state in each of those years. It is really important to notice that we were in an absenteeism or, an attendance crisis before the pandemic. So the pandemic has definitely exacerbated this, and we're 100% not alone. I'm a member of some state and regional groups and national groups that are talking about the same issue. So it's a widespread problem for everyone. When I was talking with Superintendent Bauer, we were talking about the importance of early attendance in the beginning of the school year. And so I started talking about some of this research, and he asked me to share this with you. So what we know is students who are absent in September, we can already tell a lot from that information. So students who miss between 2 and 4 days in September are 5 times more likely to be chronically absent than students who were absent for fewer than 2 days in September. And then if they miss more than 4 days in September for any reason, they're over 16 times as likely to be chronically absent than students who were absent fewer than 2 days. And just to kind of give you a little bit of a sense as it relates to our own data, I was able to take a little bit deeper dive in this for us. Last year, of our top 25 in the whole district severely chronically absent students, at the year end, they were also chronically absent by November. One of them missed 10 to 20%, and everybody else was 20% or more. So of our top 25, we knew in November that they were going to be chronically absent, and they were. And then if you go all the way down to the top 130 of our chronically absent students, there were only 10 that were not chronically absent last year.
Bless you.
So this data is 2022, so we're talking apples to apples. I picked the Friday before Superintendent Bauer asked me to create this presentation as sort of a mark. So out of the first 42 days of school, we know that it's a little bit off of your screen. 5.4% of our students were severely chronically absent, so they missed 20% or more of school. 18.3% were 10 to 19%, and students who were sort of satisfactory at under 9% were 76.3. So, and then this shows, to Superintendent Bauer's point, that this is not just a high school problem. This is not just an 8th grade middle school problem. This is across the board. So then we take a look at where we are this year. So this year we're down a little bit, and forgive me, I'm getting old and don't have my readers, but I believe that number there is 4.7%, or 4.1% this year. And then, help me out.
We are 80% under 9%, so.
Yep, and then that other
5%
one is
improvement.
15%, right? 15.5%. And so we take a look, and the graph is somewhat distributed similarly. And if you go to the next slide, we'll show sort of apples to apples. So we're doing a little better, but we have a lot of room for improvement. So if we take a look at this slide, the part that I really like about this, and you can click one more time and it'll show. So if we look at these top tiers, our second graders in 2022 were our kindergartners during the pandemic. Our 8th graders started middle school during the pandemic, and our 11th graders started high school. So then if you follow them to this year, those are our 3rd graders, our 9th graders, and our 12th graders. So our 9th graders did better this year so far, but they're still not, it seems like it would trend that, as they get a little bit older, they get a little bit more lackadaisical with their attendance, but they're still higher. So we know that that's a point worth taking a look at.
It's also interesting to note that you could see the high school did better, and you could see this year the seniors were more absent, which you would expect in a typical year. And the middle school, a reduction too, just in this short period of time. It doesn't seem like a lot, but you can see it across the bars.
So this is the year end. So as I said, apples to apples, those first 42 days were the slides we just talked about. This is where we ended the year. And I apologize that it's a little bit off the edges, but you can kind of see our 11th grade was our highest number of students who missed, and again, that was, a concern for us given the pandemic. The 8th grade as well, and the 2nd grade. So attendance is like an iceberg. Attendance Works talks a lot about everything that we see above the water level is the stuff that we see in school. You can go ahead. So we see the tardiness, we see the absences, we see nurse visits, we see behavior, disengagement, cutting class. But these are all the things that we know underneath. So unmet basic needs, lack of transportation, chronic medical issues, mental health concerns, bullying, unidentified learning needs, lack of supervision, poverty, substance abuse, limited connectedness, structure and routines, parental capacity issues, stressed about adult relationships in the school building and in the community, family vacations, parental attitudes about school, school anxiety and school avoidance, lack of community resources and services, and financial needs. And that's just like the top ones that I deal with every day. So in terms of what do we do about this, I've spent a lot of time really looking at the research and what works. And what we know doesn't work is the CRA and the court process. We know that we have to use that as a very last resort. It's really all about the engagement. It's about creating a positive school culture. It's about making sure that students are recognized for when they are coming to school, and that there's early intervention across the board, for every single student. It's really important that our community understand that it's not just my job. It's not just Superintendent Bauer's job. It's everyone's job, from the front desk staff to the custodians and the community members as well. So tier 1 is those interventions that should be available to all students. Tier 2, that's really where we're looking at our district level and school level attendance teams. Personalized early outreach is something we're really focusing on heavily at the middle school, but we're kind of working on that at the other levels as well. creating action plans with really specific action steps for students and families to take. Mentors is something that, you know, we've talked a lot about. We're in the beginning stages of that. And then the tier 3 is really those students who require my intense case management. Those are the kids that I'm texting with their parents every day. I'm texting with them, going out to the house, driving them to school, talking to DCF about them, referring them to the Family Resource Center. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into that case management for those students. And I think that's it. People have questions?
Yeah, just if you go to slide 11.
Side by side comparison?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
just a question, Gail. So if you look at 2022, right? So grade 2, right? Those same kids now are grade 3, right?
Correct.
So, like, that's not going down. Like, though that cohort is staying at that number. So, I'm just wondering as we look more, like, what about that? Like, that cohort of kids, what is getting in the way?
So it's interesting that you say that, and I did a bunch of sort of data, writing down some points for you, and then I decided to toss it because
No, you
it's
don't
a
have
lot.
to answer that all now, but I was curious.
You know, when I was talking about this with some of my coworkers, we were saying the same group of kids sometimes is the same group of kids that's always on that top flyer list. So, you know, one of the big things that I work on within the district is families. So I might have a 12th grader, an 8th grader, and a 2nd grader. And before, it was difficult for people to communicate until it got to the level of the person who was in this role before me. Now it's about, okay, what do we know about this family? How is the sibling doing? How can we, you know, do we need to get daycare for the little one in order for the high schooler to get to school? So you're right, it does require specific interventions at those targeted you know, grade levels, and we also break it down. I know Superintendent Bauer and I looked at things like gender, race, socioeconomic status, English learner status, you know, all those sort of subgroups that we know have a higher risk. Right now, there's not striking differences between the two here in Danvers, but we know, you know, what those numbers look like, and we're watching them.
Thank you, because not that all the grades aren't important, but 3rd and 4th, just for caregivers to know, like, those are such crucial years because you're going from learning to read to reading to learn. If those kids are not there, whether it's they're sick, family vacations, whatever the barriers, like, they've got to come to school. It's so important.
Right.
So.
And even the kindergarten, I mean, there's some
every
really
grade
heavy
is looking important.
There's some really heavy research about kindergarten and the importance of that and how that can predict things like suspensions and graduation. It's crazy.
Members?
I do have a couple, really more comments, I think, than questions. Tier 1, in reading some of the literature nationally, they're talking about how important it is to sort of engage parents early on in a general way about the importance of attendance, and that parents want to hear more about that. So I hope Tier 1 includes some strong, even if it's not, hey, your child is not showing up at that point, it's still sort of driving home from the beginning of the school year the importance of attendance and the impacts, maybe sharing the information on performance differences when students don't show up. And what I like about sort of the rest of it, along with the personalized early outreach, again, the literature suggests that punitive measures really don't work, that engaging parents and hopefully giving parents tools to help them help their students show up is important, because the primary reason beyond illness that students don't come seems to be anxiety and or other mental health issues. So it's not necessarily like these students, and I would think especially at the early grades, don't want to come to school. There's literally, you know, impediments to them coming to school. And to the extent that we can help parents and give them tools, and, you know, I'm sure we've all gone through times when, you know, I was working, my wife was working, and we had a child who went through the I don't want to go to school. You can only take so much time off from work. You can't be late every day. And it becomes a real pressure cooker in the family. And yet you want to do something to help your child. So rather, yeah, I think, using the legal intervention only as the last resort, but really trying to give parents help to help them through this issue is the key. So
I think
I like that.
the most exciting part about this is that last year they opened a family resource center in Salem. It used to be the closest one was Lynn, which I know isn't forever away, but for some of our families who lack transportation, it is. They are phenomenal. We have our school liaison is an individual who experienced this with her own child and overcame it. So she's a really great wealth of information, and they're working on things like you said, the parenting journeys groups, helping families establish their basic needs. We can't get a student in the building if they're not eating, or if they don't have access to transportation or health care or whatever. And that comes way before Tier 3. Those are the conversations, like you said. I'm calling families and saying, we missed so-and-so today. Is everything okay? Or, what do we need to do here to overcome this? What's getting in the way? And a lot of times they just need to be heard, and they just need some connection. That conversation and that willingness to have that open dialogue about what it is that's getting in the way is really the key. So I think, part of what I strive for is that every person in the building is having those conversations with families at every turn.
The other thing is when you get to the high school level in particular, the importance of having something that connects the student to the school. And for one person, it might be a vibrant theater program. For another kid, it might be a great athletic program. But finding those and presenting those opportunities for students to find that hook that gets them to school because they love that activity. And that's one of the reasons why when it comes to budget time, we've always supported vibrant extracurriculars, because it helps in so many other ways. So anyway, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Gail. This was super informative. The eye-opening slide for me was the iceberg slide. Just a lot of these reasons I wouldn't even have thought of. But the question I have, and you might not be able to answer this, is when you dig into these chronic absenteeism with each of the students, are there any common themes that you're seeing? Like, is there like a number one and a number two, number three?
Absolutely.
What are they?
So I will tell you that the number one theme is that children sleep with their phones in their room. That is, I would say, 99.98% of the kids that I meet with, that is the first thing we talk about. We talk about bedtimes, we talk about where their phone is, and we talk about access to social media. Ipswich Aware did a really awesome presentation about social media that was very different than any social media presentation I've ever been involved with, but they talked a lot about, our students are always available to their friends, and that we really need to teach them about priorities and about having on time and off time. But that is the number one, hands down reason. And then the other piece is parents not really knowing how to reel it back in, how to set the limits around social media, how to take the phone out of the room, how to shut off screen time. There is the school anxiety and the school avoidance. I think our social workers are amazing. We've gotten really good at identifying that. I think I've preached about Lynn Lyons ever since I walked through the doors of Danvers. She does a lot on school anxiety and school avoidance. So, we've been kind of thinking about that in terms of how do we use that common language to sort of support parents as they're doing this and then connect them. I think we have a Cartwheel program, which is a online counseling option for our families. I think that's huge for our families to get them connected kind of right away. But it's really that parenting stuff. It's parenting, it's connectedness. Like you said, it's the activities, but really it's about belonging. And I love that that's what we're about, in the last couple of years is, all over my office is you belong here for so many reasons.
Thank you.
All great questions. I guess I have a basic, very simple question in regards to what are the penalties for missing school, and does that have any impact? I remember, you couldn't miss more than 3 days in a month or 7 days in a semester. I'm just really surprised to see such a high truancy rate or unexcused absence rate. Is there any threat of failure or academic consequences? And if they don't work, it's okay to tell me that.
No, I'm happy to answer that. So you know, the state law says that students have to attend school every day, and 8 or more absences in a term. So for our younger students, a trimester, and for our high schoolers, it's a quarter, could lead to court involvement or interagency involvement, DCF filings, things like that. What I will tell you is that DCF does not have the bandwidth to get involved in families who are just missing school. We still file because we're mandated reporters and we're obligated to do so. In terms of the filing of the court proceedings, we have 2 options. We have a CRA, the Child Requiring Assistance, which is essentially designed to get families help and support. However, every time we walk through the door, the first conversation the attorneys are having with the family is, do you know that your child can be removed from your home? And yes, we know that. We very, very rarely get to that. I think I've been doing this about 5 years, and I've had maybe 3, but there were many other things going on in that family's home. But other than that, it's just, you know, a hassle for the parents. It's having to take a day off from work, wait in court. The other option is a failure to send, which is a civil complaint in the Essex County Juvenile Court.
Well, can I clarify? Because
Yeah.
I think I get everything that you're saying. I mean specifically
school?
like school. Do you fail if you're not in the classroom or
At
set
high
num-
at
in-
high
at
school.
all grade levels?
So not in K through 8, and you can speak to more of this if you
That's
want.
true. But the high
Not at
school.
all in K through 8, and then at the high school, you're obviously missing a lot more content. So the natural consequence is that your grade is not there. But we are taking a strong look at the attendance failure policy there. We're grappling with it a little bit though, because it's very difficult to say, are we going to fail a student who's a straight A student because they missed 7 classes? So it's tricky, and I think we do need to be more creative about things like parking passes or leveraging other sort of privileges. You know, it's tricky.
So is that not a policy now at the high school? And because I mean, and again, I just remember a time where even in elementary school, you couldn't miss days or else you failed, and there was no greater motivator. And I'm even curious to know, like, was that stopped because it doesn't work or because parents were taking students to court? It doesn't seem like there's any immediate action that's just automatic. Like, you missed 6th day in the semester, you fail, and you're in danger of repeating. And I'm just wondering what happened to that.
Well, I know they have that at the high school for sure. They have that attendance policy where if you miss so many days, then you go to review, then you could lose credit for the quarter, for the semester, maybe for the year. I'm not sure in terms of where that piece was with the elementary or middle school. You know, other places I've been haven't had that type, but certainly something to review and take a look, because I know the commissioner, one of the things that he mentioned, because Gail's talking about a lot of those extreme cases that go to court and such, but it's that middle piece,
Yes.
right? And I think the thing that's important to note is that the administrative team and Gail work closely together. So they're always reaching out, they're always calling. We send out a daily attendance call. It also goes to the parents as well, and a tardy call and all that kind of stuff. But the rubber does meet the road at some point, because if you're not in school, it's really tough, right? The elementary that is an area Gail focuses more primarily with high school, middle school, not as much with the elementary, but that is something we've been talking about because the data shows. Definitely for more review, for sure.
Globally speaking, in my experience in this work, I've heard, and I don't know where this came from, I can't cite anything, but some administrators, superintendents have said things like, it doesn't help a student to hold them back for attendance, and it does more harm than good socially. So I don't know what that's based on. I don't know if I agree with that.
There are studies that show staying with your cohort, the chance for graduation increases by, and if you don't, it decreases a considerable amount, for sure. Yeah.
Meaning if they fail, they won't graduate or something like that.
Yeah, so if they don't stay with the cohort, the chances for not graduating greatly increase. So it's really important to do everything you can to remediate, to keep them with their cohort. If they fall behind, the odds are it's really tough. So to Gail's point, absolutely, it's that fine line, but I think, like, you know, I think the Tier 1 has a lot of potential. Certainly, you know, we're trying to do this now, just bring out the fact of, like, what does absenteeism mean? What is that? And it's like, what is the impact of this, and how can we monitor and check this? And then the outreach that Gail and the admin teams at the middle and high school, what they're doing, and even our teachers talking about it, not making people feel bad for not being in school, but like, maybe there's a piece that's missing to get them to be connected so they want to be there.
Can I ask just one more COVID-related question?
Yeah.
Because now I'm thinking about the elementary students, and is there some re-education that needs to be done in regards to parents who are home, kid has a fever, or a parent is sick, and because more parents are working from home, it's easier to keep a kid home because when they're sick, the kid's gonna be sick, or that stigma of their sister has a fever, now I'm gonna keep all 3 kids home. I'm wondering if you're seeing a lot of that.
We do have some areas of opportunity there, and being able to differentiate and sort of have the conversation. The kids figured it out really quickly that if they said certain trigger words that they could stay home. And even some of our elementary schoolers. I mean, I have a couple of second graders that I've had the same conversation with. They're smart and they've figured it out. So, we do need to do some more education and some more pushing with the parents to say, the other thing I say a lot to parents is bring them in and have them assessed by the school nurse. You're not gonna get into your pediatrician at 7:30 in the morning, but you can get into the school and have the nurse assess. And if the nurse is willing to keep the child, then that their symptoms are not such that they should be home. And our nurses have been great at, being open to that plan because we all want the kids here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Gail.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions.
Iron fist.
All right.
Ready for more?
So we're next, special education update.
All right, I'd like to call Ms. Lynn O'Neill. She's our Director of Student Services. The presentation, the special education update, really comes off the heels of our MCAS presentation in areas that we've, digging through the data, have seen some areas of concern, for sure, and then trends we've seen. But, this is definitely a work in progress, and certainly the data doesn't always indicate anything more than areas that we need to address. So Lynn's here to really talk more about the overall umbrella of special education, the supports we provide, but it is a work in progress as we're working not only with special education, but general education too, and bring it all together. So I'm gonna turn this over to Lynn. Can you just tell me when to turn? What's that? Yeah, I know.
Thank you. Thank you for being interested in special education and what we're doing now, how we can improve, and what our desired outcomes are. So just to reframe, our current models for special education are both in-class and small group support at the elementary level, co-teaching and academic support at both the middle school and the high school, substantially separate content area classes taught by a special education teacher at all levels. And that looks different at each level. Learning center classrooms, which are partial inclusion or substantially separate. We really are looking to move towards more partial inclusion and related services. Those are our speech, our occupational therapy, our physical therapists, and our counseling services at all levels. So that's what we currently have in place. So looking at how we can improve what we already have, our focus really needs to shift to co-teaching at all levels. Currently, as the last slide indicated, co-teaching is present at the middle school and the high school, but really at all levels. Trends change, methodologies change, and lifetime learning needs to happen. So we really need to look at professional development focused on co-teaching models over a multi-year commitment. We are currently securing a provider or a consultant to do that work within our district. And we have been looking at the trainings in methodology, differentiation of instruction, and specialized curriculum, in particular for our most vulnerable populations of students who may have small group instruction in the areas of reading, writing, math. We've already completed some reading training for most of our special educators in the Linda Mood Bell program, Visualizing and Verbalizing. Most of our special educators at the elementary and middle school level. We've also had many of our special education teachers go through the Wilson certification program. We've also increased resources for our special education teachers and our students for student use by utilizing the digital programs Read Naturally, Lexia, ST Math, and MobiMax at varying levels. And we've creatively done that and pushed some of those things up into the middle school when traditionally they were at the elementary level. So the SST process has been aligned throughout the district level at the elementary schools, and we are using data from a new rigorous MTSS process. And really, I have to give credit for both of those items, SST and MTSS, to Eric Oxford and Julie Pasternak for really putting that together in a collaborative effort where general education and special education come together to really understand what students need and provide those interventions in a timely manner. So there's also a study group that's formed to review the middle school structures for special education, for all the pieces that ultimately, when put together, will provide positive outcomes for all students. Next slide.
Lynn, just for the group, SST, I don't know if they're, you might
Sure.
want
Student support team, where if a student is struggling in any part of their day, so it can be with reading or writing, math, or social emotional learning, the teacher brings that student to a team for discussion to say, okay, I've already tried, these 3 things. What else can I try? And that team comes together for those conversations, identifies some interventions, and this has shifted this year because MTSS is so alive and well that the SST process has really moved to just like social emotional behavioral needs. The multi-tiered system of support is really taking over collecting that data in real time with flexible interventions happening and tracked over a period of time for the academic needs, which has been really exciting. So some of the changes that have already been implemented over the last couple of years are the coordinator positions to oversee and coach special education at each level. They've been instrumental in making some of these changes, just as we talked about with the MTSS SST process at the elementary school, working collaboratively with the curriculum office. We have used data-informed decisions for students associated with programs to maximize inclusive opportunities at the elementary level, so that all of our students are at the elementary level now going through the DIBELS benchmark processing, through ST Math, looking to make sure that we know where their levels are so that we have entry points into the inclusive classroom, which is something that is new over the last 2 years. We have done a deep investigation into the student profiles of those students who are recommended for our learning centers to really ensure that they are participating in the least restrictive environment, which is the federal regulation. And we have established some of our program guidelines. Those are still a work in progress. While the guidelines and the student sort of profile has been established for each program, we are still working on entry and exit criteria in the transition process around entering and exiting a program. We've done transitional work, when students are moving from pre-K to kindergarten, 5th to 6th grade, and 8th to 9th grade. In some of those places, it's worked really well. Last year and the year before, some of them, we have some growing pains, so we continue to adapt what we know needs to be fixed in order for a better outcome. And we have redesigned the high school substantially separate content area classes so that our students get a more rigorous experience. Desired outcomes. What we want to see is increased instructional time with content area teachers and special education teachers in partnership. And this typically happens, through a co-teaching model or a collaborative supportive model. Co-teaching at the elementary school, when instituted, will increase time with standards-based curriculum with appropriate support. The redesigned academic support at the middle school will directly link with student IEP goals, thereby increasing time on skill development while supporting academic progress. The restructured high school special education services will increase independence for 9th through 12th grade in acquiring necessary skills to really meet their transition goals, post-secondary outcomes, and their comfort level with true content for career to college ready experiences. So next steps in special education. We intend to conduct an analysis of the co-teaching models at the middle school, high school, and look to see to where the entry points are for elementary to evaluate the effectiveness at all levels. We are working towards strengthening the Tier 1 instruction to meet the needs of included students so they can access grade level curriculum. And we're hoping to implement the district's special education programming proposal that we presented to the town board last month. Monitoring the work for successful outcomes for our students, the planning, implementation, and monitoring will need to be a collaborative effort through all parties: district leadership, building principals, special education coordinators, curriculum directors, teachers, all of them, and related service providers. Because when all stakeholders are engaged in all of our learners, and our educators are supported with training and resources, and have appropriate time and settings, we will see steady academic progress.
Thank you.
Can
Lynn.
I add one thing, Madam
Yeah.
Chair? So the next school committee will come and talk about the proposal we made in terms of special education programming. We'll share that exact presentation with the school committee. So not to leave you out, but next meeting.
So I will be completely honest. I was one of the school committee members that was really concerned with cohorts, and it wasn't to say, okay, like special ed or this race or socioeconomic disadvantage, whatever was bringing us down. It was more to say, okay, like here's where we are, what's getting in the way. This tells us a story. So just looking, I'm happy to see that there is more of a plan. Just some questions that just have come up. So like a special ed teachers now, do they get to go to the department meetings with the department teachers that they're teaching with?
At the middle school and high school, yes. There are times during the month where special education teachers meet with them, as a department, student services, and then there's another meeting during the month in which they go to their department meetings.
Okay.
So, and that's for ELA and math.
Okay. And right, so all kids right at first are general ed students, first and foremost. Looking, and I know it's only one piece, but looking at the MCAS, it was really, really concerning as an educator, as a town member, as a school committee member, because to be honest, like it made me feel like we were failing them. Mm-hmm. And I look at it and I think to myself, this third grader, this fourth grader, this fifth grader, they go through that grade once. Mm-hmm. So what is in the way of allowing kids who are in the co-taught classes able to be proficient in grade level standards? Mm-hmm. What is in the way? What's happening?
So the co-taught classes are at the middle school and the high school. So at the elementary school, we haven't had co-teaching. And to be frank, we don't have the number of staff members necessary at the elementary levels to do co-teaching effectively in grades K through 5. At the middle school and high school, co-teaching is a model that needs restructuring. And we need to ensure that we need to move to a model in which our special education teachers are dual certified, so that if we are having teachers in the ELA strand, that special education teacher is special education certified and ELA certified.
But don't they have to be now?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
No.
okay. We just really want it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
We
All
want
right.
the best.
Right,
Yes.
okay.
So, no, they haven't. That's not to say that we don't have pockets where some of our special education teachers are dual certified, but that is not the case in all areas.
Okay, but that also should not just fall on special ed teachers, because the general ed teacher, and it's a partnership, and if they're using best teaching practices and following the DCAP, which I don't know how familiar the teachers are with that, then every kid should be accessing the curriculum. So I guess I don't think it's just a special ed problem. I think it's it seems like it's a 6th through 12th problem. And we have had co-teaching for a very, very long time here. And to be quite frank, it's never been that successful. So, you know, I'm happy to see that they're going to be getting PD, but like we need it now. Like, we can't have it in a month. We can't have it in 2 months. Like, these kids are not getting what they need. So, like, when does the PD start? When are we finding who the consultant is? Like, my concern is there's no sense of urgency here.
So I would say that there is a sense of urgency. There are some foundational pieces that need to be put into place around, you know, looking at common planning time opportunities, looking at the structure of the schedule, looking at the staff and their, you know, areas of certification and expertise. Without doing all of those pieces, bringing a second person into the classroom is not going to work the way that it should. So the PD is necessary. We do have some staffing shifts that are happening, in particular at the middle school, and we are looking to fill some areas in which there are openings. And once all of those pieces are done, which we are actively looking for, you know, we will have the people in place to do that type of model. Regardless of whether or not we have the people have the vacancies filled, the co-teaching professional development is in plan now.
Okay.
So the good news is that Adam Colantoni has done this work before. I've done this work before around shifting a middle school model from more of a supported classroom with a second teacher and a robust, substantially separate model to decreasing the substantially separate numbers and increasing the efficacy of co-teaching. So that is our starting point. That's where we are now. And our plan is to get to a space where each teacher in the classroom, gen ed and special education, understand the purpose of co-teaching, the models of co-teaching, the different methodologies, and how to track that data and make sure that kids are getting what they need.
Okay, and this is also going to happen at the high school too, not just the middle school?
So our first spot is the middle school.
Okay.
And then we will move to the high school.
Okay, thank you. Eric?
Yeah, I think there's nothing more challenging in education than what you're trying to deal with at this point, Lynn. And you've got students who have particular disabilities, and there's a range of those disabilities, learning disabilities. And then within those particular strata, you have differences. It really is a process of doing individual work to figure out how to best help a particular student. At the same time, I think, based on my personal experience, you've got a good core group of teachers. I'm more familiar with the high school, but I think pretty much everywhere. You've got some really talented educators who I think really want things to work out for their students and work very hard at it. So I think you can build off of that. I like to see I think you're trying to look at some logical changes and improvements to make, and pleased that we're presenting this information to the town in terms of what we really need to be able to do the work. So I don't have specific questions, but keep working on the changes, keep working on the cultural changes, and I do agree it has to be quick with a sense of urgency, but I trust that you're working on that. So thank you.
Thank you.
No, thanks, Lynn. And you know, it's good to see that we're trying new things out there, and that's good. I had just had a question kind of on Robin's question about the MCAS with the special education. Are we, because we saw that as being a glaring kind of a big gap on that. Are we on par with other districts? Are those similar, comparable to other things, or is that clearly a gap here?
I would say it's a gap.
It is, okay. Is there anything that we can do? I mean, is there, I know it's just a data point, and you're coming 2 weeks after we just presented this, so it's kind of hot on the list, but are there things that we think we could maybe do to improve that to help, because that's going to help the overall scores too. So, I mean, is there any way, any plan in place for that?
So we actually met today at the middle school. We are talking about really restructuring the academic support blocks for our special education students. Not all students have academic support built into their schedule, but many do. We were looking at individual needs of kids in certain cohorts and restructuring the academic support block to include, a skill building, and then, our academic goal focus, where that's an IEP goal, and some repetitive skill building around problem solving and understanding MCAS-like questions relative to the content, so that we're integrating it all. Because we have to be careful. It's the IEP goal that's important. It's the foundational skill time that some of our kids have a real deficit around, and that weaving in that MCAS piece. So as a team, we met to really restructure how each teacher should be using the time. We are meeting as a department on Wednesday to roll that out, and to look for some improvement around, really capitalizing on that time that we have those students in front of us to do that skill building. So that's one piece. We also have talked about an after-school sort of academy around, specific areas in math, so that we can address some of those needs. We do a lot of work during the day around reading and writing, and the math piece is something that is difficult to really spend a lot of time on, because it always reverts back to those foundational pieces. And when we are in front of our content area, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th, 10th, we're looking at the actual grade level curriculum standards, which don't allow for a lot of time for, number sense or order of operations or, those types of things. So we really need to then have those as a focus as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, this is great. Not to jump ahead of the presentation with the proposal, but I was wondering if you could wave a wand, what would you want?
You've asked me that before.
I ask you that all the time.
I know.
I'm just wondering, have you gotten any of those things?
Oh, I think that the timing isn't there yet for
Okay.
For the things. But I mean, I will say that Superintendent Bauer and the district leadership team has been very accommodating, open to all sorts of creative problem solving, bringing on staff members, trying to think about how we onboard people in new and different ways. So we need our experts in the field to do the work. And so really creatively looking to say, how can we secure those experts? So that's been a priority focus. And then, we have done a lot of work with some of our consultants over the last 2 years, specifically around reading and training around that. So we have made some moves around that, which I am proud of. We, my years here have shown me, my first year here showed me that we did need some specific training in specific methodologies around reading. And we had, we didn't have extra people who were trained in Wilson or OG or Linda Bell or any of those, programs, and now we do. We have a significant amount of our special educators trained in LIPS, which is a phonics program that Linda Mubel puts out, visualizing and verbalizing by the same company. Most of our special education teachers have had at least training in Wilson or OG, and we have a large amount of teachers who are certified in those areas, which is fabulous. There are areas that we continue to look for training and consultation. Math is one of them. Executive functioning is another. So, we continue to look at those pieces.
Thank you.
So, thanks.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you. We
Thank
just
you.
want what's best for students, so
Me
I was
too.
being very critical.
You can.
But I appreciate.
You know why? Robin, you always can, because our kids deserve it.
Right.
And, if there was a secret to doing this, I would do it. I mean, so
Thank
I'm in
you.
it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I just wanted to add that thank you both to Gail and to Lynn for coming in, and these are areas that are important, and there is a sense of urgency. We can't wait. Our students deserve the best, and, our educators are working really, really hard. There's no question. Thanks for the credit there, but, we just got to keep pushing it because our kids deserve it, and our educators deserve the support.
So now we're on to unfinished business.
Unfinished business?
Yes.
Okay, I'm up. So at this time, the superintendent recommends the approval of the Great Rock Church for a second reading for their Christian Academy.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so is there any discussion? I know we talked about this last meeting, and we had, the whole process. We had all the information. Any discussion? Okay, so we'll take a vote. So all those in approval of the Great Rock Church for a second reading would be a final reading. Please say aye. Aye. All opposed? None. Okay, so the DTA negotiations update.
Well,
Brief.
at this point, there's really not a lot of update. We're just getting ready to start that process. We're waiting to hear back to set the official negotiating meetings, and we'll have more updates as we get closer. I did have an EE update too. I meant
Oh, yeah, sure.
off my slide. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, Mary Wormer is not here, but I have to give Mary and her team an enormous amount of credit for the work they've done with their families that are living in the emergency assistance shelters, and the work that has been done for the integration, and so our families feel supported. The center board, that is the agency that is facilitating the work through the emergency assistance shelter, has just been phenomenal. I just wanted to report to the school committee that we had parent-guardian conferences, teacher conferences last week, and Mary and her team set it up where the families were able to come and participate in the conferences. They used Alexakey in terms of translation services, so that was a lot of work, and it was well done, and I'm very proud of the effort there. Also, today started the after-school enrichment programming. So we have transportation, and we have that happening at the Smith School. We bring the students in the elementaries there for that, and it's just getting started. So we're very encouraged by that. We have, I think, 25 families that were interested in having their child participate, and that we know that's going to grow. So we definitely, again, I just can't say enough about Mary and the team and the work they're doing, as well as our educators. When I am in the schools and I see the interactions, it's just phenomenal, the work that's been done for all of our students, but in particular for our students who are most vulnerable.
Thank you. Minutes. Now, if the secretary is not here,
We could do a couple of things. I think
Okay.
anybody can make a motion to do it. Or you can simply move this to
Right.
the next meeting if you'd prefer, and have Alice do it when she returns.
I think
Let's
we
do-
can make a motion.
you want to make a motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I-
If we, as long, yeah, we can make a motion.
Yeah. Right, someone want to make
Yeah.
a motion?
Who's making a motion?
All right. I move to approve and release the minutes from the October 16th and 30th regular meetings, and approve the minutes from the October 16th executive session meeting, and not release the executive session minutes.
Second.
Okay, Okay, so all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, none. So communications. Any updates
Updates?
or NEC?
NEC, nope, we have a board meeting coming up soon. Nothing there yet.
Legislation?
Nothing since, I think our last meeting was 2 weeks ago, so nothing new, but I'll have something hopefully at the next meeting.
Okay. So subcommittees, we talked, last week we gave or 2 weeks ago, we gave the curriculum and equity update. Policy, we did a lot with that. Hasn't been another meeting, correct?
No, that meeting will be at the end of the month.
Okay. Safety is at the end of the month. Deep?
Nothing there to report. Danvers Cares did meet, and just looking to bring together resources. There was a presentation by Hawk, which is an organization that supports those who are in abusive relationships, and talking about dating violence and such. We are having a meeting on Thursday afternoon with all of our social workers to connect with Danvers Cares, because we want to ensure that the work that's happening in our schools and on the ground floor with our people are connecting with Danvers Cares for any initiatives there.
CPAC.
No updates. We just had a nice update for
Yes.
special education just now.
And then Human Rights and Inclusion Committee?
The next meeting is this Thursday, actually, and I reported on the last meeting at our last meeting.
Okay, yes, thank you. So, well, our next meeting is November 27th, virtual. Wow, this was a fast one, so I just need a motion.
Motion to close?
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second that.
Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, none. So good night, Danvers. Thank you.